About age 25, I've got pennies in my pocket, I've got nothing in the bank, and way behind on my big mouth promises to my family, and wondering what could I do to make my life better. I was willing to work hard. That was not my problem. But I just wasn't making the progress I wanted to make. And then good fortune came my way. Sometimes it's difficult to describe good fortune, why something remarkable happens to you at a particular time. One of my friends says, well, hey, things don't just happen. Things happen just. And maybe that's it, I don't know. But my good fortune was I had a chance to meet a very wealthy man. His name was Mr. Schoaf, Mr. Earl Schoaf. And then I thought, if I could just get around somebody like him, and if he would teach me and coach me, I would do it all. And that was my good fortune. A few months later, this wealthy man, Mr. Schoaf, hired me and gave me a job, and I went to work for him, and I spent the next 5 years in his employ. By the time I was 31 years old, I was a millionaire. When I met him, I was 25 years old, and when I first got acquainted with him, I used a lot of excuses as to why I wasn't doing well. And he said, well, tell me a little bit about your story. And I told him, you know, I was behind on my bills, had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank, that I was embarrassed about being behind on my big mouth promises to my family. And then he gave me one little simple phrase that really forever changed my life. And here's what he said. Mr. Rohn, if you want the future to change for you, you've got to change. And he said, if you don't change, the next 6 years of your life is going to be just like the last 6. You'll still be behind on your bills. You'll still be behind on your promises. My teacher said to me, young man, if you will change, everything will change for you. If you will get better, everything will get better for you. What a clear message that was for me. He said, if you'll change your philosophy, if you'll change your habits, if you'll refine your thinking, if you'll change and accept some new disciplines, if you'll turn the corner where you've been in the past, go for a new life for the future, he said all kinds of remarkable things will happen for you if you will change. Before I met Mr. Schoaf, I used to cross my fingers and say, I sure hope things will change. I was hoping the government would change and the tax structure would change and that my boss would change and pay me more money. I was hoping that, you know, economics would change and prices would come down, and I was hoping that circumstances would get better. And then I discovered from my teacher that those things are going to continue the same. In fact, all of those things that happen to us is kind of like the wind that blows. What you must learn to do is not to wish for a better wind. That's naive. The key is to wish for the wisdom and the skills and the learning so that you can set a better sail. And so that's what I did at age 25. I went to work not on the economy. I went to work not on the community. I didn't go to work to try to change the government. I didn't go to work to try to change my boss or the company. I didn't go to work to try to change circumstances. I went to work to try to change myself. And I picked up that promise my teacher shared with me, that if I would change, my income would change. If I would change, my bank account would change. If I would change, my future would change. And sure enough, his promise came true for me. The second 6 years of my economic life, I wound up rich. But interestingly enough, the second 6 years of my economic life, the government was about the same and the economy was about the same. You know, the companies were about the same. What they paid was the same. Circumstances around me were the same. You know, my negative relatives were the same. But I was not the same. That's how my life changed, and that's how things started working for me, changing my life all those years ago.